for continuing to come to the apologetics sessions as we were going through this. How many of you guys still enjoying this? How many of you guys still having a good time? Yep, everybody learning something? Good. Hopefully you guys are growing in your faith, knowing that you don't have to have as much faith to believe in God as you do some of these other things that we've been talking about over the last few weeks.
100%, yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
You will still need faith. The faith is not going anywhere.
That's right.
You know,
it's required. It's a requirement.
100%.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. This is I was listening to I don't remember which gospel. Anyway, I just play the gospels over and over in my listen to those.
You got a 1 in 4 chance of getting it right.
I think it was Luke.
They probably all say what
it was either Luke or John. It was either Luke or John because I think it was recent, and John's not that long. So, but I was listening to Luke. I thought I was still in Mark, and I was like, man, what? He's getting crucified again? Yeah. And I was looking down. I was like, oh man, I'm already all the way through Luke.
There you go.
But no, he says he's talking about. He says, if somebody said, hey, raise up somebody from the dead, Moses, or send Moses to go over to talk to this guy, and he'll believe. And he says, no, man, he's not going to, if he doesn't want to believe now, he's not going to believe just because Moses goes and talks to him.
Yeah, that's good.
He's going to find some other excuse, okay? He's going to find some other excuse. Here's what I want to say. I love apologetics, okay? But it's not a substitute for faith. Okay, apologetics. You need your faith first. Okay, and your apologetics defends your faith. Okay, you can't start with apologetics. You can't start with the defense. You need to start with your faith. Okay, and increase your faith. All right, increase your faith and focus on increasing your faith. Don't use this as a substitute. Okay, get in the Word. All right. Don't just, I will sit down and I'll listen to Christopher Hitchens and Wes Huff and Richard Dawkins and Sam Harris and John Lennox, who's one of my favorite Christian apologists. And I will listen to those guys forever. I love them. But get in the Word. Get in the Word.
That's right. Because as we've been explaining and talking to you guys this last few weeks about the apologetics is to strengthen your faith, to be more confident in your walk with God, because there are just people in this world, as we've pointed out every single week and continue to remind you guys, that no matter what you say, no matter how much proof you have, no matter how much you personally love them, they ain't gonna love Jesus. They don't want to. It's a choice that they are making. And again, it's not an educated decision that they are making. It is a spiritual decision that they are making. I do not want to believe in God, because if I believe in God, then I have to believe that He has a plan for my life, as we know that He does, and I don't want His plan. I would rather do this thing, whatever it is. I want to have fun in the world. I want to do this. I want to do that. And I don't want anybody telling me that I can't do that. And so I'm just going to believe whatever I want to believe. So, again, don't get frustrated when you go, man, look at the mountain of evidence that there is a God, that He loves you, that He died for you, which is some of the stuff we're going to talk about tonight, and yet you still don't believe. It's not that they're not making an educated guess. That's what I need you to understand, and what we've been really pressing on these last several weeks. They're not making an educated decision. They're making a spiritual decision, okay? Think about it. What did Jesus tell His disciples? When you go into a town and preach the gospel, if they do not believe, dust your feet off, go to the next city. Why? He said, they're not rejecting you, they're rejecting me. Okay? So that's that. Now, jumping into this tonight, so we kind of started last week, and there's so much. I mean, we're not going to be able to even cover it all tonight. No. When we take 2 weeks, we're not going to be able to cover it all. We'll give you the resources, as we always do, the YouTube, as he mentioned already, Wes Huff and Frank Turek and all these others. Lee Strobel, Evidence That Demands a Verdict with Josh McDowell. And there's so many others. Just jump on, YouTube, podcast.
We're going to be talking. I'm going to bring him back up, but who was the original apologist? Mere Christianity. C.S. Lewis. He's not the original apologist. He kind of made apologetics popular, so to speak. But C.S. Lewis.
Also wrote some great books.
Yes. Yeah. Mere Christianity is one of the best. Is one of the best apologetics books out there. If you have ever seen the Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, those are, and the Voyage of the Dawn Treader, and all that other kind of stuff. All of the Narnia.
Shredder, that's the Turtles, right? Ninja Turtles?
That's the wrong Shredder.
Oh, sorry.
And you're combining words.
Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, 4 turtle. I was going gospel, 4 turtles. You got me excited for a second. I was like, come on, man. Woo, I'm learning stuff tonight. I'm learning stuff.
I didn't hear any of the apostles.
I heard Shredder went a whole different direction.
Cowabunga, like.
How do you know? How do you know?
Well, anything's possible.
Sorry, my bad. Moving on.
But anyway, the Narnia books, that incorporates a lot of his logic and his reasoning. Yeah. Doesn't necessarily incorporate a lot of apologetics, so to speak, but the arguments that he uses for his faith and things like that. And C.S. Lewis was a famous atheist as well. He was a complete atheist, right. And then just at 180 degrees. I'm gonna talk a little bit more about. I saw something in here when he was going through, but I'll talk about it when I get there. He was talking about there's only 3 conclusions that you can come to as far as Jesus.
Oh, yes.
Is that 1, he was telling the truth, 2, he was a liar, or 3, he's a madman. Mm-hmm. Right? So he was either telling the truth, he was telling a lie, or he was crazy. We've been able to rule out that he was crazy, right? There's just too much evidence that he had sound wisdom and, reasoning and logic and all that kind of stuff. And the evidence that he was telling the truth just extraordinarily overwhelms him being a liar. So anyway, yeah. That was one of C.S. Lewis's main arguments was that the liar, the madman, or the truth teller.
I mean, I think C.S. Lewis started the MAGA campaign. I don't know if y'all have heard of that or not. Make apologetics great again. I think he started that. So that's from Pastor Steve back there. He just texted me that. So thank you for that. I didn't have. I'll put that in my notes. But that was great. I didn't realize he was the starter of that. So awesome, fantastic. All right. So jumping in this tonight. So we're going to start off with the Noah's Ark. Anybody ever heard of Noah's Ark? Never heard of it? Okay. Leading Sunday school lady doesn't know about Noah's Ark. We need to talk to her after this, make sure she's teaching our children correctly. So this is one of the big things, a lot of discussion around this. And so again, tonight we brought some guest speakers. And so we're going to let Dr. Kent talk about this here in this first video.
If you look at the country of Turkey, at the far right-hand side, you will see a mountain called Mount Ararat. It is 12 miles from the Russian border. Very politically unstable region. On a Turkish map, it's called Noah Ungamshi, which means Noah's big boat. That's the name of the region. They've got signs, you drive right up to it. Noah's big boat, this way, 5 kilometers. The Bible says the ark rested in the 7th month. Now that's interesting. Noah did not get out till the 13th month. Why would he stay in there for 5.5 extra months after the ark rested? Well, we cover all the reasons why on video number 6, the Hovind theory, but the Bible says it rested in the 7th month upon the mountains of Ararat, mountains plural. The Bible does not say the ark landed on Mount Ararat. Read it carefully, it does not say that. It says it landed in the mountains of Ararat. Actually, there are 4 theories about what happened to Noah's ark. Okay? One theory says they took it apart and used the lumber for buildings. Second theory says it rotted. The third theory says it's still on the mountain. And the fourth theory says it's in the valley. And the guys who think it's on the mountain go over there every couple of years on a big expedition. They climb the mountain. They all come back and say, we almost found it. I'm not sure how you can know you almost found something. But anyway, that's what they say. And maybe it's there. I don't know. It doesn't matter to me at all. Okay. But other folks think, hey, guys, it's not even on that mountain. It's down in the valley 17 miles away. And they think that is Noah's Ark, right there, that boat-shaped object. Kind of a teardrop shape. In 1960, this was discovered by a high-altitude surveillance plane. In 1978, there was an earthquake, and either it lifted up or the ground dropped down. I don't know. The result's the same. It is now sticking up out of the ground about 18, 20 feet. Ron Wyatt died in 99. He was a good friend of mine. He and many others have spent years studying this thing, but they think it's Noah's Ark. And like I said, honestly, I don't know and I don't care. It doesn't matter to me where it is. And some Christians and creationists get all upset with anybody that mentions there might be another theory besides theirs. Look, my approach to any subject is if there's more than one option, tell everybody all the options and say, here's the various theories on this, here's why I believe this one, but go ahead and research yourself.
Seems fair.
I think you ought to look at all the options. Richard Reeves took over for Ron. There he is in front of his model of Noah's Ark that he built. But according to them, the Ark has collapsed. Obviously, a boat that old would, cave in and fold out to the side. It's splayed. And so one of the arguments the skeptics use is, well, it's too wide to be Noah's Ark. Well, of course it's too wide. Boats all do that. They fall outwards. You can go to any old rotten boat someplace, you'll see the same effect. But radar scans show that there are deck timbers, some kind of huge timbers in there. Apparently, some kind of big structure. They find iron rivets in there. The Ark was bolted together. They knew about iron back then, not a problem. You can see some of the rivets at the Wyatt Museum south of Nashville, Tennessee. It used laminated wood, 3 layers of wood glued together with a tar-like substance, pitch, made from tree sap. And apparently it's like basic plywood, okay? Huge, thick layers of wood. And there's no grain in the wood. Interesting. It's almost like the trees didn't have growing seasons, the wood they were using. Anyway. The Wyatt Museum is a converted gas station just south of Nashville at exit 27 on the northwest corner. You can stop down there and see him. Mrs. Wyatt wrote a book called The Boat-Shaped Object on Doomsday Mountain, with all the research she and her husband had done on that. Apparently, the Ark landed close to Mount Ararat, got stuck in the mud. Everybody got off and left, and at some time later, there was a mud flow or a lava flow that pushed the Ark down and broke the bottom off. What used to be the keel full of ballast for weight to keep it upright was broken off, and it's way up near the mountain, and the Ark has apparently moved down several miles from where it used to be. It used to be way over here at the left at a little village called Kazan, which in Turkish means village of 8. Village of 8. Now, wait a minute. There was 8 people on that boat. But apparently the Ark has drifted down from where it used to be, and that's another long story. But the government of Turkey has studied all this, and they say, yep, that's Noah's Ark. They even built a visitor center. Now, some folks have said, oh, it's not Noah's Ark, it's a boat-shaped object, it's just a flow stone. It's flow formation around a stationary object. When mud flows around something, it makes that teardrop shape, like an airplane wing. Yes, I understand, it does, you're right. But the pointed end of the teardrop is always downstream. The rounded end is upstream, like an airplane wing. This one's backwards. There are flow formations in that area, no question. But this is not one of them. One guy argued, it's just a fort. Who would build a fort under a hill? Duh. The guys throw rocks down inside, Anyway, some creationists say it's not Noah's Ark, and they get mad at me for even mentioning. Well, I'm sorry, I'm going to mention it until I start working for you, and then I'll quit, okay? But the Bible says the Ark will be 300 cubits long. Now, a cubit is elbow to fingertip. I'm 6'1", my cubit is 21 inches. The average standard Egyptian cubit was 20.65, just a hair shorter than mine. That boat-shaped object is 515 feet long, which is 300 Egyptian cubits. So that doesn't prove it's the Ark, but it is interesting. It is the right size, okay? It's about 2/3 the size of the Titanic, about 2 football fields long. Pretty good-sized boat. In that region, near the village of Kazan, they found 12 giant rocks that weigh 9,000 pounds. These rocks appear at Kazan, 9,000-pound rock, and they have holes in the top. Apparently, this rock was to be held over the side of the boat to be what's called an anchor stone or a drogue stone. And the hole in the top of the rock is curved. I have drilled a lot of holes in my life. I've done a lot of building construction. I don't know how you would drill a curved hole through a rock. But there they are. When the Sea of Galilee dried up quite a bit here 10 years ago, it exposed all kinds of beach that had never been exposed in centuries. And all around there, they found hundreds of small rocks with holes in them. It's a common practice in stormy areas like that to put rocks around the side of the boat to keep the boat stabilized. Give it some weight. If it gets windy, you drop them down into the water, and you now have a sea anchor all the way around the boat. But anyway, there are a lot of folks who think these rocks were actually drogue stones or sea anchors for Noah's Ark. What this would do, this would make the boat stable during stormy weather. It's almost like your anchor to the water, if you can imagine that. And if it really gets windy, the rocks are going to drag behind you, and now you're always perpendicular to the waves. You can't capsize. One atheist wrote me a letter, and he said, Hovind, I heard your seminar about Noah's Ark having big rocks hanging over the side. You are so stupid. Don't you know if he had rocks hanging all over the boat, it would slow him down? I wrote back, where was he going? There is no place to go, okay? The whole world's underwater, okay? He's just trying to float. You see, Noah, the instructions are real simple. Get in, sit down, float, land, get out, okay? You don't have to go anywhere. No sails. You don't have to steer the boat, okay? One atheist said, well, a sailboat was built with 6 masts and it leaked so bad because of the twisting from the sails. Well, Noah's Ark didn't have any sails, okay? It just was designed to float. And some people think it might have had a moon pool in the center because a long ship has trouble going over the waves. It tends to lift up and the ends are exposed and it tends to flex or break in the middle. Well, if Noah's Ark had a moon pool, that would solve the problem. What it is, it's a hole in the center. As the waves go up and down, the water goes up and down inside that hole. Of course, you got a wall built up on the inside. It's called a moon pool. As the water goes up and down inside that moon pool, going over the waves, it acts like a giant piston, forcing fresh air in and out of the boat every time you hit a wave. You might actually pray for a good wave once in a while. Hey, Lord, we're about to feed the elephants. Would you please send a wave? Yeah. Anyway.
So as you can see here, guys, I like what Dr. Hovland was saying here. He's not saying this is absolutely the Ark of the Covenant. So I keep saying the Ark of the Covenant.
It's like the fourth time.
It's like
Noah's Ark. Just today.
We're having all this conversation about the Ark of the Covenant the last few days, and I keep talking about it. But yeah, exactly. It was the first one. But you know, I love the fact that, you know, again, we're not saying it's Noah's Ark, but we're not saying it's not Noah's Ark. Okay. A lot of expeditions, and so one of the unique things about this, I want to bring this up and understand. For those of you that don't know world geography, and we talk about Turkey and Mount Ararat and the mountains of Ararat, you need to understand that area that he's referring to there sits right on the border of Turkey, Iran, and Iraq. Now, somebody help me explain or help me understand why it would be difficult to launch archaeological expeditions in that area. Because they keep blowing them up, okay? I mean, that to be honest, it's a geopolitical nightmare. If you go on YouTube and you watch, there's been, as he mentioned, there's been expeditions there to Mount Ararat and to the mountains in that area, and almost every time they get there, they're arrested. They're like, hey, what are you doing here? You can only search this area.
They don't have the best temperament.
Yeah, they don't have the best temperament,
and they don't get along very well.
Yeah.
Between the three.
No.
I don't know much about Islam, but you have two main factions, the Sunni and the Shiite, and they are constantly at odds with one another. I don't know how it works, but it makes it a very difficult, process to try and
because you have to, obviously, it's not just, hey, I got a passport, I can go there. You have to let those countries know, hey, here's what I'm doing here. I'm in search of these artifacts and so on and so forth. And so again, when you say, well, how can we'll just get everybody over there, I'll go climb that mountain, it'll be understand that's one of the challenges. However, they have discovered what was just shown to you. Again, I could go on. There's hour-long videos of this. The petrified, wood that they've taken, showing marks on it, showing, that it looks like it had been worked. That had, he talked about the Droge stones and all that kind of stuff. And anyway, there's so much information there to talk about. But so when the Bible says, hey, again, from an archaeological standpoint, there was an ark. There was an ark. Okay. The next one I want to talk about real quick is the next video I want to show you. And if you've ever been to Israel and done some tours, you can actually go and see this next one on tour. And it's the walls of Jericho. Anybody ever hear the story of the walls of Jericho? How they fell down? Okay. All right. So we're going to show that.
And the walls came tumbling down.
I've just arrived on the northern end of the Dead Sea at the ancient city of Jericho.
Oh, hey, can you start that at about like 2 minutes and 13 seconds or something? Can you fast forward a little bit, or?
City on the planet.
because this dude is all just in love with his jokes, and we don't have time. So it's only about a 4-minute.
We can't do
right here,
his
there you
jokes
go.
and Wes's jokes.
Stay a while, have some tea. Marry my daughter.
There we go.
Now, most of us know what happened next. The Israelites, led by the priests carrying the Ark of the Covenant, marched around the city once a day for 6 days. Then, on day 7, they marched around 7 times, after which the priests blew their trumpets, everyone shouted, and suddenly the seemingly impregnable walls of Jericho came crashing down. It's one of the most dramatic moments in the Old Testament. But did it really happen? Is there any evidence of this amazing story? For many years, due to the research by the famous archaeologist Kathleen Kenyon, the answer was no. Due to her misdating the destruction of the city, there was a huge discrepancy between the archaeological record and that of the Bible. However, if
The lady he's
Mark
talking about
dates
is
the city's
not a
destruction
Christian.
to roughly 1400 BC, things quite literally begin to fall into place. Now, I'm standing in front of this lower part of a retaining wall in the ancient ruins of Jericho. Now, this part of the retaining wall, this lower part, you can see is built out of these huge rocks. Now, up above it would have been built out of a reddish mud brick. Now, what archaeologists have discovered is that the reddish mud brick fell outward into this area right here and would have provided a perfect siege ramp for the Israelites to walk into the city to conquer Jericho. Now, did you get that? Archaeologists have uncovered the remains of mud brick walls, which had been supported by a stone retaining wall. These mud brick walls had fallen outward and created a ramp of sorts up into the city. This evidence is what we'd expect to find after reading the Joshua 6 accounts. As soon as the people heard the sound of the trumpet, the people shouted a great shout, and the wall fell down flat, so that the people went up into the city, every man straight before him, and they captured the city.
Yeah, I don't know about that last prediction there, but whatever. So, yeah, we're done with. Yep, thank you. So again, if when you go to Israel, you can actually go and see some of these places, and one of the most important things about this is the city of Jericho. Wasn't discovered, I think, until like the late 1870s or 1880s or something like that. And so it was an evidence of, hey, see, it's not here, it's not here, it's not here. Well, then archaeologists went, hold on, let's go see where the Bible says it is. Bible says it's here, let's go dig. And they started digging, guess what they found? They found the city of Jericho that you just saw. So one of the cool things, there's an area of the city, again, Chris has been there, she's told me about it, where archaeologists say it literally looks like the earth opened up and the wall as a whole literally just fell into the ground. And then they were able to just run, right over the top of the wall because, there was no wall.
Anymore.
That's
Yeah.
right. So again, very cool archaeological discovery. There's others that we could talk about. I could show you videos of the Red Sea where Moses went across on dry ground. The Bible says, and so
That one's fun.
yeah, go ahead.
So the Red Sea is really cool, and it sounds far-fetched. It sounds you think okay, well, whatever. Especially if you're talking to an atheist, they're like, okay, so the water's parted, right? And you could so the next time you could just ask them to explain why that there are chariots and shields and bones and wheels and all kinds of like an Egyptian army was drowned at the bottom of that sea, right? Because that is what they found. They did some diving down there and they found the remnants of all the things that they would have been using to chase after the Jews. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So again, just another find. I mean, there's so much we could talk about how, the ancient writings, the tomb of Esther. We could talk about the tomb of Mordecai that are still enshrined today in these countries, and they still teach and pass on the story of Esther, the story of Mordecai, and so on and so forth. And it's just there's so much evidence, talking about King David. That was one that was somewhat interesting because, there wasn't a lot of historical artifacts talking specifically about this great King David. Now, Israel is all about King David, King David, King David. But as far as some of the other, ancient, I won't say countries, but superpowers of that time, there wasn't a lot. Well, all of a sudden, over the last probably 5 or 10 years, they've made new discoveries, and it's King David. It's David, the great king of Israel. David, the great king of Israel. And so, again, pretty much every ancient archaeological discovery that we see in that time frame, in that era, all point to references in our Bible. Okay, and so again, it should build confidence and increase your faith that the Word of God that you read, that you have, that you hold, is accurate. Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, just as from an apologetic standpoint, the benefit, the advantage that you have, the advantage that Christians have is that we have philosophical arguments, we have moral arguments, when we have physical evidence. Okay.
I thought you were about to say physical altercations. I was like, hold on, Brother Mike, hold on. We can't be talking about that tonight.
South side of the kingdom.
That's it.
But when the atheist makes an argument against God, it's always an abstract argument. You can't produce evidence. You can't produce evidence of evolution. You can't produce evidence of materialism or humanism. You just can't. There's absolutely nothing to support.
Yeah.
There's absolutely nothing to support materialism as it's just an infinite regression. It just boils down into infinite regression because what created this, created this, created this, created this, created this. Yeah. So we have an advantage. It surprises me that more people aren't convinced by the evidence, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and I think there are some people that finally just, have come out and admitted, like, I can't argue with you because you got all the facts on your side.
Yes.
But if I scream louder,
right? Yeah.
But I just want to believe what I want to believe. And so tonight, finishing this up, the second half of tonight, what I really want to focus on is I want to focus on the main character of the Bible, and that is, of course, Jesus Christ. Okay, I want to focus on him because we've kind of given a lot of evidence. There's so much more about the
authenticity.
Thank you. The authenticity and the historical evidence for the Bible. Okay, but now I want to specifically talk about Jesus because the argument is Jesus never existed. Jesus wasn't real. It was made up. It's just in your Bible. There's no other. I'll spend the rest of tonight talking about that. And what are the other writings? And let me pull this up here. I'll be back in one moment. Here we are, right here. All right. So again, talking about what other. The argument is, again, no other writings talk about Jesus. No other writings say anything. I'm going to pull up this graphic here so we can talk through it. I apologize that I had it up and then I closed it out. But there's an ancient writer that many people know about called Josephus. Yeah, and he was a historian writer at the time. And he was writing about Rome's conquest, and that was kind of what he was writing about in this area. And so his job was to write, history,
yep.
And then
as it occurred,
yep. And then turn it over to Rome and say, "Here's your history. This is what's going on." Right. And so when Josephus' writing, kind of was turned over, he writes about this man called Jesus, and to the point where he even says, "Hey, I don't even know if it'd be okay to call this guy a man because of all the things that he's doing."
Yeah, I think I want to say that he recognized in his writing. I want to say that he recognized a lot of the miracles. I want to say he called him a magician. Yeah. It could have been a different historian, but it was him or one other guy, but somebody called him a magician due to all the works that he was doing, right?
Yep.
Which is insane. But I just want you to notice also, you know, we talked the other day about manuscripts and how many manuscripts that we have and how many authors that we have that reference Jesus that are not in the Bible, right? One of the things that here's what you don't have, okay? Here's what you don't have. You don't have anybody, these letters, they're publishing these letters, they're publishing these books. It's all fake. It's none of it's real. None of it happened. Okay. People being brought back from the dead. Lazarus, the young girl, the young maid that he brought back. The people that he told to get up and take up their bed and walk. Okay. You have it's zero. It's none. It's none. And these people were. Paul was writing, I think the book of Acts can be traced back to within like 20 years of the crucifixion. So there were still people that were alive that could have been interviewed or could, you know what I'm saying? And nobody did these things. Nobody countered.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that to Michael's point is like it's the evidence that demands a verdict talks about the case for the empty tomb, and so even in your Bible and other writings that you'll see here with Tacitus and some others, that they come and say, hey, there's an empty tomb. The Jewish leaders at the time did not deny there was an empty tomb.
Correct.
There was no deny. They didn't say no, the tomb's not empty. They said, yeah, it's empty, but you stole the body. So there's an argument there on that behalf that says they're admitting the tomb's empty. His body's not there. And so, Albert Schweitzer said this: when we have once made up our minds that we have not the materials for a complete life of Jesus, but only for a picture of his public ministry, it must be admitted that there are few characters of antiquity about whom we possess so much indubitably historical information, of whom we have so many authentic discourses in talking about Jesus. He's saying there's not another person of antiquity that we know about that has been written more about than Jesus.
Correct. That we still have a lot of the information in our possession.
That's right.
Not just we know a lot about Socrates, right? Mm-hmm. But we don't have a lot of the week before.
Yeah.
But his biography was written 400 years after he died.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to name a few of these, and we're not going to go into all of it. But I'm going to name a few, and then we'll have a few quotes here. But outside of the Gospels, you have Ignatius. Okay. You have Clement. You have Polycarp. You have Pliny the Younger. You have Tacitus. You have Thales. You have Lucian. You have Celsus. I know we already mentioned Josephus. He's always one that kind of that's brought up. And they're like, okay, you got one. Name another. Okay. Well, there's several more that we're writing. And here's the most important thing, ladies and gentlemen. They're not writing thousands of years later. Okay, all of the writings that Michael just mentioned that we have copies of were written, we showed it last week, 400 to 500 years after the fact.
Right.
So 400 to 500 years after, that's the first manuscript that we have.
Yeah.
All of these writers that I just mentioned and I just named to you were all writing during the life of Jesus and the apostles.
Correct.
And they didn't contradict one another. That is so important. And so when we talk about the non-contradict, what I mean by that is when you look at Polycarp says, hey, there was a guy named Jesus and they crucified him. Does that align with our Bible, or does it not align with our Bible? It aligns. When Celsus says, hey, yeah, there was a man named Jesus, and the governor, we talked about that, the procurator, the procurator.
If you hadn't said it
procurator,
wrong,
procurator.
No.
Hey, I said indubnus a minute ago and did it right.
Was it is it Proctor?
Procurator, I think.
Procurator?
Either way, all right. He said, man, I forgot the dude's name. I was about to say something real funny. And
Jesus?
That's it, Jesus. Jesus, and Pontius Pilate. Okay, he mentions these historical references. Okay, he's not a Jew. He's not writing, a gospel. He's not a follower of Christ. He's a Roman historian saying, here is the Roman people that were in place. What was at the time that was going on? This is what was happening, and it affirms with what our Bible says. Okay, and so with all of that, I want to just we'll have a few quotes here. Gerd Ludeman says Jesus' death as a consequence of crucifixion is indisputable. It's indisputable. No historian today disputes the fact that there was a man named Jesus. Now, again, I'm not a big promoter of podcasts. I know they're very open on that podcast. However, I like the fact that Joe Rogan is not afraid or ashamed to have anybody on his show to talk about anything. Okay? Joe Rogan
doesn't even mind admitting when he's wrong.
And
that's a big.
That's a huge.
Yeah. That's
so
a big.
And so last week we showed Wes Huff and we showed some videos from Wes Huff up here last week. Joe Rogan had Wes Huff on his show, as Michael mentioned last week. Joe Rogan not only was an atheist, he was a believer that there was not a man named Jesus. It was made up. He never existed. There's no evidence for it. At the end of that show, Joe Rogan said, "I was wrong. Jesus was real." Now, I'm not saying he's God. I'm not saying but there was a man named Jesus that walked on this earth. I can't deny it. The evidence is overwhelming.
Same thing. Yeah, he said the same thing about intelligent design.
Yes.
He's acknowledging a creator.
Yes.
That's a big step forward.
That's a big step forward. And so again, when we talk about these things, understand there's so much evidence out there that it really is overwhelming. And so we can go through each and every one of these quotes tonight, but it's the same over and over again. I'll let you go to that next one, and then you can quote Bart there.
So, am I doing Grant or I'm doing Bart?
Either one.
Okay. So it says, I refuse to sacrifice the past in order to promote the worthy cause of my own social and political agendas. No one else should either. Jesus did exist, whether we like it or not. But this guy's basically just saying, I'm not trying to. We need to take history as fact, or as the most logical conclusion, and whether I am. If I'm an atheist, I shouldn't, just because I'm an atheist, I shouldn't deny that Jesus existed, is basically what this guy's saying.
That's right. So the thing I like about Bart's comment here is the fact he's saying, in today's culture, it's very evident, and you guys know what I'm talking about. Yeah. If you are on one side or the other of the aisle,
yes,
no matter what, me and Cody going to be on opposite sides of the aisle for this argument's sake, okay? No matter what he says, just because he's on the other side of the aisle, I'm not going to agree with it. I love Gringos. Y'all know I do. Y'all know it's my favorite restaurant. But watch this. Cody say, Gringos is the greatest restaurant. Not. I can't believe it. This dude hates me. He absolutely hates Italians. Can you believe that? He hates Italians.
It doesn't surprise
because
me.
he says Gringos is. I hate Gringos. Gringos is garbage. I'm sorry, let me apologize to all you Italians out there that my man, he's over here promoting this nonsense. You see what I did? I love Gringos, but because he's on the other side of the aisle, I'm not agreeing with him. That's what Bart Ehrman is saying is, I'm not going to get into your social or your political agenda. No one else should. Jesus existed, whether we like it or not. Just because you don't want to believe in Jesus doesn't negate the facts that he existed.
So it scares people, right? Because with every
I got to clarify, just because it's the culture we live in. Cody does not hate Italians. Cody loves Italian food. I just made that stuff up to prove a point. Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
I don't know, man. I don't know. No, I'm just kidding.
Looks skeptical to me.
No, but just imagine just imagine your belief as a cliff, right? And so everybody's scared of the edge, right? Nobody wants to take that leap, right, so to speak. And I'm speaking really, really figuratively here. But with every little fact, you get a little bit closer. You get a little bit closer, right? And so if you have to admit that Jesus existed, right, that's a big step, right? You're really close to that edge now. You know what I mean? It's not going to take a lot to push you over. You know what I'm saying? And so most people are denying it anyway. Let me rephrase. Most atheists, it's a fragile argument from them anyway, because God's law is already written on their heart. So they're having to work every single day to deny that. You know what I'm saying? And so when you say, okay, well, there was Jesus, you know what I mean? That's a big step towards something that they don't want to get any closer to.
That's right. And so, Michael, I'm going to let you quote the last one here.
Okay.
Michael,
Okay.
going to quote Michael.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
To sum up, modern critical methods fail to support the Christ myth theory. It has again and again been answered and annihilated by first-rank scholars. In recent years, no serious scholar has ventured to postulate the non-historicity of Jesus, or at any rate, very few, and they have not succeeded in disposing of the much stronger, indeed very abundant, evidence to the contrary. He used a lot of big words right here.
And you nailed every one of them, but good job.
He just said that Jesus is out there. There's a lot of evidence for it, right? He says yeah, anyway, that's it. That's it.
And one thing I forgot to mention before we quoted these gentlemen tonight, they're all atheists. Everyone that we just quoted are leading atheists and agnostics. They do not believe in Jesus. They do not believe in God. However, they cannot argue the fact that Jesus walked this earth.
Walked the earth.
And again, they summed it up very nicely there, okay? Now, talking, and we're going to talk through this kind of quickly just because of the time, all right? But we're going to give quickly. There's 7 other pieces of evidence. Now, this first one, I'm going to let you talk about this. Because
Okay, all right, so look, all right. Give me 2 seconds.
it's cool, it's interesting,
Yeah,
but
so there's
A lot of thought
so
on it.
much to this that it's impossible to make it short, so I'm not going to talk a lot about it here. There's a guy named Gary Habermas. He is the leading, foremost expert on this thing. This is called the Shroud of Turin. Okay. Now, Jesus was wrapped in a burial cloth, as was the tradition. They were wrapped in a cloth. They were placed in a tomb, and the stone was rolled in front. Okay. Now, what they have is they call it the Shroud of Turin, and they believe it is.
hey, let's do Joe Rogan. I hate to interrupt. Can you find a picture of the Shroud of Turin and pull it up?
Jamie.
Jamie,
Jamie.
Steve-O, pull up a picture of the Shroud of Turin.
Jamie,
Well-
can you find a picture of the Shroud of Turin? So, the
Sorry.
Shroud of Turin is rumored to be the burial cloth of Jesus. Okay, it's the cloth that Jesus was wrapped in when he was placed in the tomb. Okay, now,
Moving on.
yeah, if you want to know about this thing, go look up. Just Google or get on YouTube. Gary Habermas. Okay. Siri's pretty smart. If you misspell the name, she'll correct you. The only time Siri doesn't know who you're talking about is when you put it in your own contacts, right? Then for whatever reason, she can't, no, I don't know who Moke is. Okay, well, how about Mike? Could you make that leap?
Can you get there?
Yeah. So Gary Habermas, the Shroud of Turin, or even if you just put in the Shroud of Turin, it'll give you kind of a diverse list of lectures and TED Talks and all that kind of stuff. People talking about it. But Gary Habermas is a Christian apologist and just a scholar. He is. Oh yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
All right. So this is okay. This is supposed to be a picture of the Shroud of Turin. Oh, okay, there we go. So what you're looking at here is the actual shroud, okay? So this is the actual shroud right here, and this is where they have kind of overlaid their own color scheme onto it, okay?
Yeah.
So I'm not saying it's not real, but this is what they're getting out of this. Now, this is after a lot of X-ray, LiDAR, study microscopes, prayer, fasting, all kinds of stuff. But if you can kind of see, you can kind of see the bridge of the nose. You come down here with the mouth, and you got the beard and stuff down here. But they can explain how they get here. This is not a giant leap right here. Okay, this is a pretty decent representation. But is this the burial cloth of Jesus? That's the That's the big debate.
Yeah,
Okay?
it's deemed as a holy relic, and I believe the Catholic Church has, they pulled DNA, blood DNA from this, said there's only one,
One set of chromosomes.
one set of chromosome, which means it would only come from the mother, that being our
I don't
Heavenly
know if that's
Father.
true or not.
Now, again, these are, and again, being open, like you said earlier, tell everybody everything, and you can make your decision for yourself, okay?
Right. I was going to address that, and I'm going to do that in like 10 seconds. Don't ever
go
be
ahead.
scared to address anything. Don't have the ostrich syndrome and stick your head in the sand and say, well,
Right.
I'm not going to look at that because it's scary, right? I can promise you, you could try to stump me. You're not going to be able to. There's too much logical, and it's spiritual and all other kind of, I'm telling you, the evidence is on your side.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah. So again, this is number one, and so it's a fun talking point. It's there's stories that the shroud has, when they discovered this shroud, in the process there were sick people that came in contact with it and were healed, and I mean there all of these things. Again, not going into into all that tonight just for the sake of time, but it's something that is it's when they the important thing here is when they did the research, they said, hey, this is about 2,000 years old. That was their thing when they dated it and all that kind of stuff. And so they're tying it back to that point. So again, just more discussion of Jesus. Ancient writings, moving on. Every single, and we kind of touched on this already, but every single non-Christian source from ancient times recognizes, whether implicitly or explicitly, that Jesus was a real person who existed at that time. This is really cool. Go ahead. I'll let you have this one.
In 1986, construction workers unearthed tombs in northern Jerusalem. One contained the remains of a man named
Johannahan.
with a nail driven through his heel, a clear sign of crucifixion.
Yeah, and there's a picture here I can show you guys. Sorry, I didn't have a chance to get all my PowerPoint all fixed up this week and get this included. But the cool thing about this was up until, man, one of the arguments that was even being made was that, the crucifixion, I don't know if you guys have heard this or not, but they even argued the crucifixion was proof that the Bible wasn't real, that Romans did not crucify people. I thought this was crazy. I thought it was like, there's no way that nobody believes this. 2 years ago when Chris and I went to Italy, we were doing our tour of Rome. We were in the Colosseum. Our tour guide explicitly told us that Christians were never crucified and they were never sacrificed in the Colosseum. But that was made up. And we were having a good time. We were enjoying it, and I didn't feel like fighting with nobody. So I just moved on. But the second time she mentioned that, like, we're here on our anniversary trip. I don't want to get into an argument with this lady. I don't know this lady. She's doing a good job, the tour guide, but she keeps bringing this up. It's aggravating.
She's just choosing violence.
She's choosing violence. I said, if she brings this up a third time, we're going to have a conversation.
Right.
So she brought it up a third time. And I was like, okay, hold on. Where are you getting this from? You've mentioned it 3 times, and I'm just curious. I don't want to get in an argument with you here, but where do you get that there was no crucifixion? Well, Christians just made that up to make Rome look bad. I don't think so. I don't think the evidence doesn't say that. And where do you get that Christians were not crucified or were not brought to the Colosseum? Again, Christians made that up to make Rome look bad. I don't think Rome needed any help looking bad. I don't think they needed that. But again, I'd never heard that argument. But she was explicitly making the argument that was not the case. And so now again, we have evidence and proof that in archaeological discovery, and as I just showed you, this in the area they were crucifying, we've got bones with nails driven through them. So,
has anybody ever heard the word excruciating?
Oh, there you go. I like that. Yeah, go right ahead.
Has anybody ever heard that? You know why that word was made up? Because they didn't have a word to describe the suffering that you went through on a cross.
That's right.
So that word is a direct reflection of the amount of pain and suffering that people went through who were crucified.
That's correct. Excruciation literally means out of the cross. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Tim, do you have something to say? Oh, thank you. Unrehearsed.
I just threw it in there.
An ancient inscription. Yeah, out of the cross. And so an ancient inscription found on a mosaic in an Israeli prison reads, the God-loving Akipatus has offered this table to God, Jesus Christ, as a memorial. This is dated back to 230 CE. This artifact is a striking testament to the early Christian belief in Jesus as a divine figure. I'm going to jump through these next three, and then we'll go to so the five. Church of the Apostles has been discovered. The Alexamos Graffito, which is basically graffiti that was written on a wall depicting, Jesus being crucified. The James ossuary, which is a burial box found with the inscription, James, son of Joseph, brother of Jesus. And so, again, so much more, but we're going to spend the last, 10 minutes here to talking about this. So hopefully all of that led to this. Jesus was a real person. Jesus existed. We have tons of historical evidence that Jesus was a real person. Jesus was alive during the time the Bible was written, and it proves, again, hand in hand with the Bible. Now, speaking about this Jesus, was he deity, and this is the question, or was he man? So defending the argument of many Christians, and the reason I want to bring this up is Connor asked me a question after last week's lesson. He said, Dad, I've got a question. If Jesus was God, then how come he never claimed to be God?
That is he did claim to be God.
Bam. Boom.
First
Moving on. No.
Yeah. Well, I mean, no. So no. Well, this is a big thing with the Muslim community, right? Mm-hmm. Because again, and I'm not dogging on Islam or anything, but if you go back to Islam, Islam says that the Torah and the Gospels are true and correct. Okay. The Islam is supposed to be a later revelation of God to this man Muhammad, okay, and so it's supposed to be in addition to, okay, it's supposed to be an extension of the Bible, okay. We know it's not the case, but a lot of this is a big question for a lot of Islamist intellectuals and people that debate is why did Jesus not claim to be God? And one of the things that I just listened to, I was just listening to this. I've been listening to the Bible the last few days. Anyway, so this is one of the things that I love is that when Judas
just recently,
Judas asked Jesus, "Is it me?" Okay, because Jesus said that he was going to be betrayed. Okay, and Judas said, "Is it me?" And Jesus said, "Thou sayest," right?
Yeah.
And so then Pilate asked him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" And what did he say? "Thou sayest," right? I love that. But there's small things in there where, and then on top of that, he told Caiaphas, he said, "Are you the Messiah?" He said, "I am, and you'll see me on the right hand of coming on the clouds on the right hand of power." And they ripped their clothes and went nuts and that was it,
That's Jewish. He just spoke Jewish, Hebrew.
Right.
If you guys don't know, that was Hebrew for "Oh my Lord, have mercy." He just said something terrible.
Yeah. And he also said, "Before Abraham was, I am."
Yeah.
There's a lot of different areas in there where he didn't say the words "I am God," okay, but Jesus made the claim that he was God robed in flesh.
Yeah, and there were several other parts, several other scriptures and in the Bible where the disciples asked him, "Lord, show us the Father, show us God," and he made the statement, "When you've seen me, you've seen the Father." And when he talks about, I go away to prepare a place, I'm going to come back again. The reason why Caiaphas and the Sadducees, the Pharisees the high priest wanted him dead was because, and this was their claim, he makes himself God. So the thing about it is, to Michael's point, people are looking, saying, oh, well, he never said, I am God. He did say, all the things that you just said, before Abraham was, I am. He made the reference, when you've seen me, you've seen the Father. I and my Father are one. All of these references, he's saying, I am, but he's not saying, I am God. But everybody around him knew exactly what he was saying. Okay.
That was why the priests. That was what Caiaphas was telling Pilate when they were trying to. Because Pilate's trying real hard not to crucify this guy. He's like, this dude is not. He hasn't done anything, right? And Caiaphas says, well, he made himself equal with God.
That's right.
He made himself. He claims to be the Son of God, and he made himself equal with God. We can't put him to death, so you're going to have to do it for us.
Yeah. And Paul later makes the statement, hey, I believe it's Paul, that said, he said he found it not robbery to make himself equal with God. Again, those around him knew exactly what Jesus was saying. Yeah. They knew exactly when he made these references that they were saying what Jesus was saying. I'm God. Yeah. I am God manifested in the flesh. And so, and we're just about out of time. I got one more quick video, but I want to go through this real quick. And it's the prophecies. Again, we've talked a lot about how the Bible was written, how many authors, how many continents, all this kind of stuff, okay? And so with all of that being said, all of these different people writing about one person,
right? The
Messiah. And the prophecy of the Messiah will absolutely be known based upon his credentials. Isaiah 48:3 says, I have declared the former things from the beginning. And I'm going to, again, just for the sake of time, I'm going to skip down through this. How many prophecies did Jesus fulfill? Jesus fulfilled over 300 prophecies from the Old Testament. On that day when he was crucified, he fulfilled over 29 in just one day.
And there's things that people will say, well, he lived into the prophecies. He knew the Old Testament so well that he just engineered it. Okay. Well, he didn't engineer how many pieces of silver he was going to be betrayed for.
That's right.
Okay, that was a prophecy. He didn't engineer where he was going to be born. He couldn't engineer that he was going to be called a Nazarene. There were tons of stuff that he could not have engineered.
Right. Yeah, that preceded by a messenger,
right.
All of these different things. And so again, the mathematicians get together and they run the prophecy and they say, there's over 300. But if you were to study this out and run the calculations and say, what are the odds of one person fulfilling 8? Just 8 of the prophecies. It's 1 chance in 10 to the 17th power. So that's a 1 with 100 gazillion zeros after it. There's a lot of them, okay? 17 zeros after it. To illustrate this, and Michael mentioned this a few weeks ago, again, that he loves this. He loves doing the mathematician thing with the dollars.
I think I got this wrong because I was talking about evolution when I did this one. But
it's the same thing.
But I guess
it
was the same thing. But if you were to just fill the state of Texas up with silver dollars and then put one gold dollar like a Susan B. Anthony and then blindfolded somebody and set them anywhere in Texas and they walked up and they bent over and picked up the gold one on the first try, that's
the whole state of Texas.
The whole state of Texas.
3 feet deep.
Yeah.
Now, I would like to find that because I'd be backing up a truck.
Yeah.
Throw this money in the back.
100%.
So the instant. So again, not only was Jesus referenced so many times, but absolutely Jesus through the prophecies, we could be confident he was the Messiah. And I'm going to play this last video for you guys as we close. We're right at time.
I like to look at the evidence for the resurrection in 4 categories. The first one is, did Jesus die on the cross? Was he dead? Virtually every scholar on planet Earth concedes that Jesus was dead after crucifixion. We have no record of anyone anywhere ever surviving a full Roman crucifixion. Even the Journal of the American Medical Association published a peer-reviewed scientific medical study of the evidence for the death of Jesus and said clearly the weight of the evidence indicates that Jesus was dead even before the wound to his side was inflicted. Even the atheist New Testament scholar, Gerd Ludemann, says historically it's indisputable that Jesus was dead. So Jesus was dead. The second category of evidence is the early accounts we have for the resurrection. In other words, I used to think as an atheist that the resurrection was a legend, and that took a long time to develop in the ancient world. But what I learned is that we have preserved for us a creed of the earliest Christian church, a creed that is an eyewitness-based report of the resurrection of Jesus. Now, this creed has been dated back by scholars to within months of the death of Jesus. Within months. That is historical gold. So we've got a news flash from ancient history on the resurrection. Third category of evidence is the empty tomb. And the best evidence for that is even the opponents of Jesus implicitly admitted the tomb was empty. Because when the disciples began proclaiming that Jesus had risen, what the opponents said was, the disciples stole the body. Now they're conceding the tomb's empty. They're just trying to explain how it got empty. So everybody's conceding the tomb was empty. How did it get empty is really the issue, and that goes to the fourth category of evidence, which is eyewitnesses. You know, for most of what we know about ancient history, it comes from one or maybe two sources of information. And yet, for the conviction of the disciples that they encountered the resurrected Jesus, we have no fewer than 9 ancient sources, inside and outside the New Testament, confirming and corroborating the conviction of the disciples that they encountered the risen Christ. That is an avalanche of historical data. So you put all that together and you have a really good case for Easter.
That's right. So we're going to finish this up next week, okay? And we're going to talk a little bit more about what Lee Strobel ended with there, and that is the resurrection, because it's indisputable, both the death and the resurrection of Jesus Christ. But if Jesus died, but he never got out of that tomb, then he wasn't God. And so talking specifically about the historical evidence of the resurrection is very key. And then we're going to end this kind of on a moral note, I guess I would say, and talk about, because one of the big questions that we get asked a lot, and I appreciate Connor's question that he brought this past week. But one of the big questions that I know some of you have been asked as well is if we serve a loving God and he is all love, then why is there evil in this world? And it's a very difficult question to not only ascertain, but to answer, because again, it strikes at the heart of every single person. So we're going to talk about that next week as we kind of wrap this up. All right? Amen. Anybody have any questions tonight? You got a question over there? You got a question? All right. Go ahead, question.
Son in redemption, and Holy Ghost in regeneration. But you can't find one scripture, not one scripture in that whole Bible, where it says Jesus Christ's name is written in heaven. Not one. Can't do it. I've searched and looked. Now, if he's supposed to be so great and so, I love my son so much, for God so loved the world, he gave, surely Dad wouldn't want to write his name in heaven. His name is written in heaven. He said it in the book of John. In the beginning was the Word. And what is the Word? And the Word was
The Word was made
God.
flesh. Yep.
God. We got it backwards. It was God that made himself man, not man that made himself God. Anyway, I can go
I missed the question. Was there a question, or was that just a statement? Okay. All right. All right. He got the statement out. Yeah. Thank you. That was very good. Yes. Was it? There we go. Yes. Yep. I've seen the video. That's right. Yes.
And that supposedly the blood actually fell into the propitiation
Yeah.
Of the Ark of the Covenant, and that the evidence says that there was blood there
Yeah.
that fell from the cross. Is that true?
I've seen the video. I've seen the video. Dr. Trent, we got one over here. I think was as part of that video. Again, it's one of those things that, you know, there are other people there, you know, confirming that as well. It's a question. Do you have a
Do you have an
response?
answer to that, Josiah? Go ahead.
Yeah.
No,
You be a party pooper.
I'm with you. I'm with you. Go ahead.
So a guy named Ron Wyatt is a self-proclaimed archaeologist.
Yeah.
He made a lot of archaeological claims about biblical history.
Yeah.
And he has like a doctorate in anesthetics, and went and brought his own team with him to do these digs, and
Yeah.
said he found stuff and never brought evidence.
Yeah.
A couple of those, one was the Red Sea, finding stuff in the Red Sea. Another is the Ark of the Covenant being under the cross.
Yeah.
There's never been proof.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that guy was a con man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful idea, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's true. Obviously, we don't know.
Yeah, because when you hear the story, because I've seen the same video that you've seen, and I was like, man, that's really cool. Like, but like where else is the evidence, right? So remember when we first started talking about the the apologetic series, and I used the napkin box as an example, and I said when you have a scientific theory, the scientific theory. You don't say, here's my theory. Oh, none of the evidence matches my theory, like evolution, but I'm still sticking with my theory. No. You're supposed to change your theory based on the evidence. Then also, when someone comes and retests it, they should have the same experience and the same outcome that you did. So when a video like that surfaced, because I saw the same video and I was like, man, if that's true, like that is awesome. So I kind of Googled, like, hey, what else is going on? And that was the only one. I'm like, man, if it was true, there has to be additional. So again, I can't find any supporting evidence for that. It's a super cool thought, but I can't find any other supporting evidence for that. So
Don't ever
yeah.
be scared to say I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay. It's okay. It's okay not to know. Okay. Again, just because because you don't have an answer in apologetics, or because somebody says, oh well, this piece of evidence here contradicts this thing in the Bible. Well, okay, that's okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Don't let the whole of your faith rest on the fact that somebody may or may not have found something that may or may not contradict something
Yeah.
in the Bible. I can promise you there's an explanation for it.
Yeah.
I love Ben Shapiro's take on this is that when you're reconciling science and religion, if they don't match up, you're doing one of the two wrong. Okay. And that's okay. And so I can promise you nobody has a full grasp on the Trinity. Okay. They just don't. Nobody has a full grasp on everything that Jesus taught in total. You know what I'm saying? It's a lot. I was just thinking about this just today. I was like, man, this is absolutely insane. I know that we say that we have a grasp on this, but how could we?
Yeah.
How could we have a grasp on all the things that Jesus taught? He tried to simplify it for us. All right.
Yeah.
My point in saying that is that it's a lot. It's okay. Pray, talk to God, and it's going to be okay tomorrow.
Yeah. Sun's going to come up again. Watch it.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's it. Good questions. Anybody else? Or comments or statements? Yes.
Quick comment.
Yeah.
I
Really? Man, that is really cool.
Hopefully,
That
it's
is
not
really
the Church
cool.
of Scientology. I'm just saying.
It wasn't now. It would be that one. That's awesome. That's awesome. That's really cool. And again, it's an intellectual discussion to have. And I appreciate you bringing up the video, and I appreciate the comment, because it's the same thing. Just like the Ark of the Covenant video I showed tonight. There's so many different, like, historical, like, I've watched several documentaries of them going over. They've went back to this place that I showed you tonight, and they're like, man, it could be. Then they found another place. They're like, hey, here, this looks like a part of it as well. It's petrified. And so they're again, is it conclusive? I can't say that it's conclusive, but what I can say is, because one of the other parts I didn't show tonight, but when you look at the flood, okay, the Bible says that, there was one landmass and it became broken up. Well, if you take all of the continents of the world, you can put them back together like a jigsaw puzzle. So again, the evidence over and over again points to the fact that our Bible is accurate, and so on and so forth. All right? Awesome. Great conversation tonight. Great lesson. We'll wrap it up next Wednesday. Thank you guys for being here. God bless you. We'll see you back here Sunday morning.
Pray,
God bless.
pray, 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 pray,
Pray.
pray.